This is a family show.
All right, welcome
I'll
back,
just tell
everyone.
it to quit its internal whining.
So Shannon realized what the whining. I think I'm right about this. So the whining is just the male calling out to the female.
Yeah, whatever. They still whine.
That's beautiful, Shannon.
No, it's not. If you had a guy if RJ whined at you all day, would you find that attractive? I don't think so.
If I sounded like a mourning dove, maybe.
No,
Maybe it'd be nice.
It's
I
whining.
I like the sound.
I know I'm biased. I'm
Don't try
biased
it on
against
Shannon.
poor
Don't
morning.
try on Shannon.
I'm biased against poor morning doves. This is known about me. I can't stand them. And growing up, there was one rule. My dad did not put very many constraints on our behavior, which is probably good because I wasn't so good at being constrained. But he just couldn't handle whining. That was the one rule. Don't whine. No whining. You can argue all you want. You can do all that kind of stuff, but no whining. So every time I hear that bird, I can see my dad just furrowing his brow and telling you to stop whining.
Well, here,
I don't
let's
think it
play
sounds
it.
like whining.
Let's play it real quick, and we can
Yeah.
hear if this is. All right.
You don't think that's whining?
No, I think
I
that
don't
sounds
know.
like mourning, like MOURNING.
Yeah.
As
Yeah.
in the name.
Mourner's whine then.
Yes.
But yeah,
But we
so
do have a lot of them in our collections. We have
Hmm.
1,436 of them.
Oh wow.
And that's
Did
not
you-
all of them.
Wow. Did you kill 1,000 of them?
Oh yeah, or Shannon kill for whining.
So the thing about Mourning Dove is I think it was ranked something like 11th in terms of North American birds in terms of estimated total population numbers.
Yeah. The U.S.
Oh,
population is estimated to be 350 million birds.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
And that's second only to what passenger pigeons used to be thought of, which is the most common bird in the world at the time. So, but I think that there's no way this bird was distributed or as numerous now as it was pre-colonial times, because that bird it doesn't like forest. It's not inside a forest. It likes picked over crappy habitat, people's backyards.
And
Parklands.
The modern secret of its success is that it's also adapted to cities very well.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But it's in southwestern Arizona, or the southwest and the deserts of Arizona. It gets all the way up to the Canadian border, although not very far into Canada. And then it's down in Florida. There's been a small population introduced in Hawaii.
Oh, wow.
Hmm.
So yeah, and the numbers are just huge, and so that we have so many in the collection because it's a bird that people would have sampled across North America in the collections that have come into the museum over the last 150 years.
No, I was just gonna ask about. I was reading about how much they eat every day, and was just wondering do feeders play a lot of role in that, or is it possible to find that much food if there aren't feeders around as well? It says that they eat something like 12 to 20% of their body weight every day.
Wow.
So the other thing about
Nice.
these birds is they can be kept in captivity. So there's an awful lot of data both for kind of wild birds because they're pretty easy to watch and captive birds. And so I guess the answer to that is that's incredibly surprising to me, and yet it seems like it's a very hard. It's based on good data, people. Yeah, so
I was reading also just about their storing food in their crop, and that.
Yeah.
So I didn't know about that until reading about it. Do a lot of birds do that, or is that unique to them? Or so basically they store food in a pouch in their throat. Is that right?
Yeah.
Until they can get somewhere safe enough to digest it. So they store tons and tons. Somebody it says one bird racked up 17,000 bluegrass seeds in its crop at once, like that.
Holy cow. That's unbelievable.
That's insane.
Okay, well, maybe they aren't as boring as I think they are.
Yeah.
Well, so pigeons in particular have really big crops, and I can say that based on preparing them as specimens. And when you open them up, what you usually do when you're prepping a specimen is you can open the bird up, and then you're getting at the trachea and the esophagus to continue prepping the bird. And in a pigeon, you literally have to like work your fingers around this massive crop area in order to figure out where you are. And so, yeah, it's much bigger than a lot of other types of birds, which is they're part of this group that I always say, it's a huge family in order Columbiformes it's all over the world, and yet they have their population biology. I mean, Shannon mentioned passenger pigeons, which are extinct, and basically the clutch size in pigeons in doves is 2. They never have more than that. And so their reproductive biology is entirely based on, in mourning doves, nesting again and again and again.
Wow.
They can
And I think-
re-nest within 30 days.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
And that's not because a nest failed. They'd re-nest faster than that if a nest failed. So that's
And there's to be some suggestion that you could have birds breeding in their first year.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
yeah,
It's like that's
8 months old, 9 months old, starting to
Wow.
breed.
Wow.
That's not normal.
Do they mate for life? Like, do they keep the same mate, or do they?
So I'm fascinated by that question, because the estimates are that they have a lifespan on average of 1 year.
Yeah.
Wait,
Which-
a dove?
Yep.
This one, yeah.
Yeah.
That's so
Whoa.
short.
So
Well-
it means that 50 to 75% of the population dies every year.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
So
Not
but
healthy to be
that-
around humans.
I was thinking, so in our backyard, when we have them come into our feeding tray every morning to scarf down peanut shells into their crops, they're almost always in pairs, even in the winter. And so I've always wondered whether I've got pairs at the feeder in the winter. So, but then you match that up with this really short lifespan, and they seem they're monogamous in the sense that there's no evidence of extra pair fertilizations in mourning doves to speak of, although I don't know how well people have really looked at that.
There are divorces, though.
There's
Yeah.
what?
Divorces. You might successfully
how can you
mate
have a-
with one male for the first couple of times, and then
Too
you
much
may-
whining and they move on.
Yeah, and they choose a different mate, or that one mate dies. If their lifespans are short,
Oh,
they have
wow.
to breed all they
Oh, yeah.
can in a short period of
that's-
time, and they're certainly capable of it if they can breed again within 30 days of a
Wow.
previous clutch. So you
Hmm.
got to be prepared to move on. So
And the northern populations are migratory, so they migrate to the southern part of the U.S. or partially migratory. So we have them here in Chicago, despite our cold winters, year round. Coming back to what Shannon was saying, that may not have been true historically. So that may be a really augmented by farm
climate
field
change
and
and
Oh,
climate
wow.
change.
change in cities too.
Yeah. Making
Yeah.
it warmer. Cities are generally warmer than outlying environments as well. So,
Okay.
the temperatures of Chicago aren't as abrupt in the city as compared to, outside of the city.
So when they're in the city and there's not feeders and there's not like a lot of natural seeds and everything, what are they just finding whatever they can to eat and just like
Yeah,
a
there's
like a
lot
like
of
a
seeds
like a
on the
pigeon
ground, I
does?
guess.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And they'll do the same thing in terms of loading up that crop when they find food, and then going off and sitting there and basically breaking it down and digesting it over time. One of the things I find stunning about this bird is you can go online and you can find pictures of huge numbers of them that are shot in South Texas every single year.
Yeah, it's the biggest hunting allowance of a game birds. 20 million of them are hunted in the U.S.
Wow.
Or I guess in North America, 20 million every year.
Can you eat them, or what are people hunting them? Is it just for sport, or?
Yeah.
Oh.
They'll
You can eat them
and eat them.
Oh, okay.
Most doves are pretty. They're tasty. So they're they are good. But the other thing, when you prepare a specimen of them, they have the thinnest skin of. It's like a paper that's been wet, like a Kleenex, but thinner that's been wet. That's how easy it is to just kind of tear their skin to pieces. So you never give someone who's new. In fact, I wouldn't touch one. You never give someone who's new a dove to prepare, because, you think of, I don't even know how they survive with skin that thin, honestly. So I would never give someone a rock dove or a mourning dove to prepare. They'd never come back to prepare anything ever again.
Why is their skin so thin?
I don't know. It just sticks to their backs and it rips off. It's just, you feel horrible at the quality of the specimen that you're making when you try to touch one. It's just, there are people who are good at it. We have some people who are good at that. That's not me. Because it takes a lot of practice not to rip the skin completely.
But I think
very
it's
stressful.
It's an interesting, again, the order itself, Columbiformes, has been around for a very, very long, 20 million years probably.
Maybe more. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe more. And so it's, in spite of all these factors. So for instance, we've just talked about hunting with mourning doves. The populations across the U.S. are considered to be very steady in terms of their numbers for the most part.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
And so they've got this annual harvest rate based on hunting, and the population numbers are fine.
So they have done. That's where they have done a lot of work to look at how many birds can be sacrificed a year. So there's quite a bit of research that's been done on that in the United States and Canada. So that's pretty interesting. And one of the first DNA studies, mitochondrial DNA sequencing studies, was done on mourning doves by, one of the first people to ever do things like this. His name is John Avis, and one of his students. And there's no genetic differences in mitochondrial DNA, which is not going to surprise anybody who knows anything about these kinds of data. So that is interesting.
It's not because their lifespans are so short. It doesn't look like there's much site fidelity among either females or males, and so they're basically kind of covering the landscape on a regular basis as they go back and forth to their breeding grounds.
Wow.
No, it's
Wait, so if they can't breed till they're 8 months old and they only live a year, does that just mean they have 2 clutches, or?
I mean, that's an average, which doesn't incorporate the variance, right? So there's probably a significant number of them that don't even make it even close to a year. But then there are going to be quite a few who live significantly longer than that. So you need to know more than an average. That's why you need to understand variance and means and modes, medians, things like that. So we'd be better off knowing the median age of the adult birds rather than an average, which would incorporate an average would incorporate those that died at 2 or 3 months old or even less.
I gotcha. Okay.
And actually, I have not seen a lot of data about longevity. So we were talking about harlequin ducks, for instance, and there are harlequin ducks that have been banded and recaptured in the wild that they know are 17 to 19 years old.
Oh,
Yeah,
Whereas-
I usually look that up. I
With
didn't
mourning
look that
doves,
up for mourning doves.
I know, but I actually didn't see any information on that. So,
Oh, really?
wow.
in spite of the fact that there has to be data because they live in captivity, I can tell you we've had people bring pigeons into us that in captivity we know live up to 23 years or so.
Oh my
Oh, wow.
gosh.
But
Jeez Louise.
but the indications are that mourning doves don't. I mean, their population biology is not designed for them to live very long.
Mm.
Okay,
There were-
Wild Birds Unlimited tells you a little bit of this is, anyways, take it for what it's worth. Although this one comes from the Oklahoma State University Extension, saying that they live roughly 2 to 4 years. The average is around 1 to 1.5 years, but some individuals can live up to 19.3 years. And in captivity, they
Oh,
can
wow.
live up to 16 years.
Oh,
So
crazy.
Oh,
that's
wow.
just getting at what I was saying, right? There's a lot of
Yeah.
early mortality. And,
I
some
know. It
individuals
brings
live
the
a lot
average.
longer. And you're going to put a lot of genes in the next generation if you live that long and you can breed so many times a year. So,
But again, I mean, so another aspect of these birds that I find absolutely stunning is the fact that they make the simplest nests you could possibly imagine.
yeah, they're the lowest rent, some of the lowest rent nests of birds, like the laziest looking. The fact that I don't even know why they bother.
I heard you can see through it a lot of times. Like you can just see an egg right through the.
I've been able to see eggs looking up
Oh my
through a
gosh.
bottom of a mourning dove, and
That is crazy.
it does, right? And you would think that's got to be a recipe for disaster
Yeah.
on a regular basis, and it probably is. And again, it's a really abundant bird population wise. So despite all these weird aspects of their behavior that you would think would cause problems, they're super successful.
Mm.
That
They-
is crazy.
Another thing about them is that they have to drink water. This is another thing. So they need open water someplace, which you would think would mean you couldn't live in a desert. But if they can find some water someplace.
But they drink differently than other birds. They don't tip their head back to drink. They use their tongues like a piston and suck the water up.
Oh, cool.
Creating pressure with their tongue going back and forth. So maybe that means they can get water and quite a bit of water fast. It's more efficient and effective than trying to tip your head back and get some water in. I don't know. That was my fun fact that made mourning doves less whiny to me.
I was going
And
to
then
ask.
the other thing has to do with them bathing, which is another thing I never really thought about before. But if it's hot, they will open their feathers up to let the water kind of get closer to their body, their skin,
Oh.
than they would if it was cold and they were outside in a rainstorm. They don't do that. But if it's hot,
Okay.
they'll open their feathers up and let the water get way more close to their body as a mechanism of cooling, not just like dust baths to clean your
Oh,
feathers
cool.
off. So I didn't know that either.
Very cool.
They also get avian pox. So if you look at pictures, there are some really nasty, gnarly pictures of mourning doves with pox.
Ugh.
The ones that go on your eye, but also the ones that go in your mouth, which can be deadly. So that's
gross.
a form of a contributor to mortality is the pox in their mouths. It's disgusting.
Their feet are kind of thick and they're not very well protected. And again, I would say that's not entirely well suited for Illinois winters. And I've got pictures of birds that I've taken where I'm fairly convinced that there's missing toes as the result of frostbite.
Oh.
And yet at the same time, they're here all winter and there are a lot of them.
totally fine. Yeah.
They do have a lot of parasites because they get trichomonas too. So that's this flagellated protozoan parasite, and that's a major cause of their death too. So it's a good thing their populations are large. But yeah, and again, their name Macrura, macros means long, and oros means tail, so it has to do with their tail, which is
Okay.
kind of like the least noticeable aspect of them and their behavior. So why they pick that and not something else, I have no idea about. And also doves, we should do way more episodes on doves because
Oh yeah.
doves, there are some spectacularly colored doves, like
Oh.
unbelievably pretty colored doves, these incredible greens and purples.
Oh, cool.
If you get close to mourning doves,
Yeah, okay, but it's not
I-
like
they
some
have
of the
this
other ones.
iridescent violet
They
patch
have
on-
a violet,
Oh,
yeah,
yes.
they do.
Yeah.
They're
Really-
very
But-
pretty. Yes.
But not like some of the other doves.
So what you're saying, Shannon, is you're not going to go out on one of these call counts that the mourning
No,
dove just set up across the country to estimate?
no, I am not.
I thought you were starting to come around on him for a minute.
I
Shannon.
know.
You're
You're
not
naming
that
all these
far
cool
around.
things. No. All right.
I might have moved a couple degrees in a
Okay.
circle, but I'm not coming all the way around. Definitely. That is not a long-term research project for me, listening to Mourning Doves whine across the country. No.
I
RJ,
think
do you
we're-
want to ask him about crop milk?
Oh yeah.
Oh.
So
It's not milk the way you think of milk, like cow milk, although it does serve a similar purpose of feeding young. But in this case, there's no carbs in crop milk. So it has proteins and fat, and it comes from the sloughed off skins. It's gross. And apparently it looks like cottage cheese. It's gross.
Oh.
And
it's
I know.
control-
Go
And
enjoy your dinner, Amanda.
Exactly.
we're having
It's-
cottage cheese.
I think
No
we may
more
have talked
cottage
about
cheese.
this, and this is, I think, it's controlled by the hormone prolactin. And
Oh.
this is the one where my great grandfather was actually one of the researchers that
Your
discovered
grandfather, not your great grandfather.
grandfather. What am I? Yeah, I'm getting, my grandfather.
Wait, so tell us more, John. Your what did he do?
He studied pigeon crop milk production and what was controlling it, and it's the hormone prolactin in pigeons that controls that, which is
So
one
he's
of the
the one who described prolactin to science.
Very cool.
Wow.
That is awesome.
Wow, that's so cool.
And
Wait,
have
so
you-
was your grandpa a professor too?
Yeah, so he was an endocrinologist
Oh, wow.
back when the term didn't was just beginning to be defined.
Oh.
Wow.
No, there's an interesting story there with passenger pigeons because his advisor was the last student of a guy named Charles Otis Whitman, who was a professor at the University of Chicago. And Charles Otis Whitman was a behavioral biologist in the earliest times, and he had a colony of passenger pigeons at one point at the University of Chicago. So this was back in the early 1900s. And then when he died, his last student took his pigeon colony, which he also used for behavioral experiments, to Cold Spring Harbor. And that's where my grandfather ended up working and doing the prolactin work on the pigeons there.
Wow,
That is
cool.
awesome.
And John's dad uncovered the structure of catnip for his
No
dissertation.
way.
No, I
Yeah.
didn't know that.
Wow.
There's nobody like that in my family. I don't know about your guys's, but
No,
No.
that me neither. That is very cool.
Was catnip developed to make them woozy so they don't attack birds?
I think there was a circularity and all that. That's a good one. I like that.
I like that
Yeah.
idea. Yeah.
They're too stoned to go hunting.
Exactly. To eat the songbirds. Yeah.
Well, I think that's we're getting close on time for Mourning Dove. We do have one mailbag question though. So this is from Kelsey from Michigan, and Kelsey says, "I have an idea for an episode, and let me know if you can't do it. but I've been looking at a falcon that is on the endangered species list. Is it pronounced the Saker falcon?
Yeah.
Saker.
And she said thoughts. So I don't know anything about the Saker
Oh,
falcon.
for sure.
John, Shannon.
So
Yeah.
the one thing I wanted to emphasize to her, which could get me in a little bit of trouble, is that it is on the endangered species list, but that's because all members of the family Falconidae are considered endangered species based on the designations that they have. And so that includes some birds that aren't really endangered. This bird is not got the biggest population sizes across its range, which includes Eastern Europe and into mainland Asia. But it's probably not all that endangered in the grand scheme of things. And so one of the things that happens, somebody just pointed out to me the other day that all penguins are on the endangered species list at some level, but whether or not they're considered threatened or endangered is a different level of classification sometimes. And so we tend to make these generalities sometimes with these lists, which I think are understandable, but at the same time, unfortunate. It would be a great bird to do. I mean, it's a very common bird in the falconry trade, so there's a whole level of interaction.
We shouldn't spend too much time talking about it before we actually
No,
do it.
absolutely
Okay.
agree. But I like the idea of
Okay.
Or
doing
else
it
we'll be doing another episode before we finish this one.
for sure.
But
And have we done a falcon yet? I don't know if we
I
have.
don't think so.
no, so the
Yeah.
teaser for everybody is that falcons are more closely related to cardinals than they are to a red-tailed hawk.
Whoa.
So-
Wow.
That's crazy.
And if that doesn't blow your mind, and more closely
Right.
related to parrots than they are to a red-tailed hawk. So
Oh,
that's mind-blowing tree of life
That is
stuff.
mind blowing. Yeah. That's
all right. Well,
crazy.
yeah, we'll definitely add that to the list then. So, Kelsey, thanks for writing in and thanks for listening. All right. Well, does anyone want to close it out on Mourning Doves?
I'll just say that you got to give them some love. This is an incredible bird, and incredible in some ways for all the things that it does poorly that don't seem to affect the fact that it can have a major distribution across all of North America.
Well, they need to stop assaulting my ears with their whining. Maybe. I can appreciate the colors, okay, for sure, but not the voice. No.